Hey heroes, welcome to the Heroes Institute. I am your host Damien, and today we're going to talk about wealth, my favorite topic, and more specifically the 4 pillars of true wealth. Now, if I were to ask you, are you wealthy? You might be thinking about your bank accounts or your assets, the job you work in, like how much you make and your investments and so forth. And if you have a huge bank account, like a high-paying job, then by definition you should be wealthy, right? Now the problem with this is that it's quite one-dimensional. I can't just, what I mean by one-dimensional is that I'm only taking into account one aspect of your life, which is your career or the assets you have. And this is what society kind of prescribes. It creates this paradigm of thinking that our wealth is equivalent to our bank accounts. And this thinking or this mindset is very damaging and restricting, because what happens if I lose my job, or I go bankrupt one day? Does that mean I'm poor? By that definition, yes, you are poor if you lose all your money and you lose your job, okay? So you can see this definition that society prescribes is very damaging. Now, the truth is, true wealth, what I like to call true wealth, is multidimensional and subjective, okay? So subjective in the sense that every single person will have a different definition of what wealth is. So a farmer might deem their land to be their greatest source of wealth. A scientist might deem their knowledge to be the greatest source of wealth, and an athlete might deem their health to be their greatest source of wealth. So it's subjective in that sense. Now, multi-dimension, when you make it multi-dimensional, it means that wealth has various components. It's not just one thing like assets, and that's what it is. So, for instance, okay, no one just becomes wealthy. Okay, it's not an automatic thing. Unless you're born into a rich family or you inherit some money, then you're wealthy in that traditional sense. But no one just becomes wealthy in the true sense. So you need to invest time and energy and build your connections and work in your career, and then you become wealthy. You don't just create wealth out of thin air. So this is what I mean by changing this paradigm of thinking, and we do this by changing the definition of what wealth means to us. So in a sense, true wealth is when multiple aspects of your life come together to sustain and enrich your life, okay? And some other definitions of wealth I came across is this one definition from Roger Hamilton, which goes like this, that wealth is not how much money you have. Wealth is what's left over when all the money has gone. I mean, I paraphrased it, but that's essentially what it is. And it's interesting because it doesn't take into account even money. Wealth is not money. It is something more than that. So when you lose all your money, that's what wealth is, what's left over. And that's what I really want to focus on, changing this idea that that money is wealth. Yes, it is to an extent, but there's much more than that. It's multi-dimensional and it's subjective. As you can imagine, this traditional model or mindset about wealth is based on our bank account is very damaging and very limiting a lot of times, because we're sold this idea that we need more and more to become wealthy so we can ultimately become happy, which is ridiculous. It's very flawed thinking, because you're constantly chasing something that is becoming ever elusive, because if everyone wants it, it's going to be super hard to get, and not everyone can be wealthy in the traditional sense, okay? So I propose a new model of thinking about wealth. So this is which is the 4 pillars of true wealth. So if we think about wealth as a state of being, or a foundation that we build over time, it allows us to be happy, or I guess wealthy, any moment, rather than this elusive goal or objective we have to get to be happy. So this model of true wealth is based on the idea that true wealth is a foundation that we build based on the various aspects of life, the various elements of our life. So we have our vitality, so that mainly our health and the energy levels we have, our time, so the amount of free time we get to do whatever we want, assets, so that includes money as well, also knowledge, skill sets, your house, whatever that is valuable, that can create value. And lastly, connections, which is the people we have in our lives that enrich us. So it could be our family, our friends, our partners, or just even strangers that we meet that can enrich our lives. So these are all the various aspects or pillars of life that allow us to build our wealth. Rather than just rather than chasing something, we have it's like a constant state. Well, not constant. It's a state of being that you can achieve anytime. You're always wealthy, and it's a matter of just building it up over time by balancing these various pillars. Now, the key word here is balance, because there's no point having a foundation that's sky high but built upon only one pillar. At any moment, it can come crashing down. When you lose a job, a partner, or you lose assets of some sort. These external circumstances can shake the foundation, and then you're not wealthy anymore. So let's use some examples to illustrate the key importance of balance. So let's take the example of a billionaire CEO that's on their deathbed. Is this CEO still wealthy? I mean, traditionally, yes, they are, because they have a lot of money, but there's no point because they have no time or they have no health. Someone with $100 in their bank account is wealthier than a CEO with all the money in the world, but it's about to die. Another example is lotto winners. So there's an interesting phenomenon that happens to lotto winners, especially those that come from low to medium income households. So what they found was around 70 to 80% of these lotto winners that won $50, $100, $200 million lost it all within a few years. And that's hard to comprehend because $200 million is a lot of money. But these people don't have the wealth mindset. They have a very imbalanced mindset. So they start spending. They don't know how to retain the money. They start spending it on wasteful purchases. And after a few years, they're actually worse off than before they had won the lotto, which is ridiculous. But it's happened so many times that it's some kind of. It just illustrates how these imbalances in our lives can just destroy our wealth. So a lot of times these people were actually became bankrupt, and they became depressed, suicidal, and they had experienced a lot of personal issues, like because their friends or their connections in their life started using them for money, or getting backstabbed and betrayed and used and whatever. So you can see from these examples that it's often a case of imbalances between these various pillars of life that cause these foundations, our foundation of health, to collapse in the first place. Now, let's talk about how to balance the foundation. So we first have to understand that these pillars are interdependent of each other. So if one rises, another one might fall. So let's take the example of a workaholic. A workaholic might spend all their time and energy to build their career so their assets go up, but it will come at the cost of their health and time and family. I'm sure we've all know of cases where people just sacrifice their health and time and energy just so they can get ahead in their career. What's interesting is that the Dalai Lama had this interesting quote about this phenomenon. He said that when he was asked what surprised him most about humanity, he answered, man, because he sacrifices his health in order to make money. Then he sacrifices his money to recuperate his health. And that's a perfect illustration. It just illustrates how when one goes up, the other one goes down. So it's really about a balancing act. This whole idea of building wealth is learning to optimize the balance, because you don't want one pillar to be too high and one to be low, because the foundation of health will come crashing down when something bad happens, like you lose your job, your partner, your bank account, whatever, like through a recession or something like that. So if you want to learn to balance your pillars, you must have a good awareness about where these pillars are in the first place. You will need to gauge where they are. Am I spending too much time here, too much energy here, and so forth. So it's really about asking honest questions about your life. For instance, are you spending all your time and energy building your assets whilst neglecting your health and connections like your family? Or do you have assets Do you have all the assets in the world but no time to spend it? Are you wasting time and energy on people that are just dragging you down? So these are the questions that can give you insight into where your pillars are at, and whether or not there's a gap between them. And once you do this, you can start to balance it. Like if I'm spending too much time at work, if I start realizing that, then I'll spend less time at work and I'll spend more with family and so forth. It's really quite straightforward when you think about it. In the end, it's really about finding an optimal balance between these 4 pillars that allow you to build this stable foundation of true wealth. After all, it is far better to build a house on a solid foundation than to build a skyscraper on a shaky pillar. That's pretty much it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys got something out of that and can apply these principles to your own life to achieve massive, true wealth. Let me know in the comments below what you think, if you've got any questions, and feel free to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.